failure doesn't mean you failed. Failure
Right.
gives us an opportunity to get it right.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley in partnership with Leumi Tech and sponsored by Hippo Insurance, Turing, Upwest Labs, and Hillel at Stanford. This show is about the journey of leaders, and this episode embodies exactly that. Meet Michelle Taylor Willis, the founder of Gagnant Media. Michelle Taylor Willis is the founder of Gagnant Media. A Florida native, she is married with 4 sons and resides in Atlanta, Georgia. She is a proud graduate of the University of Florida and an award-winning entrepreneur, author, speaker, and master strategist. Michelle recently launched her first book, Raising Significance, a guide to well-rounded, independent, and confident kids. She has appeared on the nationally syndicated Tamron Hall Show on ABC to discuss the book and on the Fox affiliate in Atlanta, as well as being featured in several publications. Michelle Taylor Willis, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. How are you?
Hey, I am doing great. Thanks for having me, Michael. I love your name. I think we have the same name.
There you go. Where am I catching you in the world right now? Where are you?
Well, I am in Atlanta, Georgia.
In Atlanta, Georgia. Well, I haven't had the chance to visit Atlanta, Georgia, so I'm definitely adding that to my bucket list. But Michelle,
You got to come.
I definitely want to give me one thing that I'll experience when I arrive at Atlanta, Georgia, that I must experience.
Me.
There you go. I see. I had a feeling that was going to be the answer. I love it, Michelle. You're a storyteller. You are, the journey that you've done. I don't even know how to categorize you because you've done so many different things. The work that you're doing now, exemplifies such a unique and an amazing journey throughout the years. Both the impact that you have on people, the insights you have in young entrepreneurs, the book that is coming out, and just the different things that you've learned over your career. So what I'd love to do, if it's okay with you, just to go all the way back to you studying marketing and advertising, and you're starting in the telecom industry, and walk me through some of the big milestones you've done to get to where you are today. And then we'll pick and choose some fun lessons to talk about.
Okay. So let me just start off by saying I'm a salesperson. I started selling when I was 15. Actually, I probably started selling when I was like 1. But my first job selling was when I was 15 years old. And I got to tell you that my whole trajectory in life has been built on my career as a salesperson, right? When I was formerly in sales for corporate America, and then as a salesperson for my own business, right? Um, Everybody's in sales. And I learned that at the age of 15. So my career started in an insurance agency where I was dating this guy, and his mom owned an insurance agency, and she hired me to cold call. And so I literally would come in every Tuesday and Thursday from like 7 to 9 p.m. because at that time, that was the best time to catch people at home. And I had a script that I created, and I would call people and say, "Hey, it's Michelle from State Farm Insurance." I can't remember, but something about lowering your, car insurance or home insurance by blah, blah, blah. I'd love to schedule a time for you to talk to the agent. Does Wednesday at 1:00 work? And
Right.
I literally was setting up so many appointments and passing it off to the agents, to where like I was outselling the people who were paid full time to sell.
Wow.
And so it's crazy, right? And
And
I was
why
at
was that?
15,
Was
and
it
I worked
because
in
your script was better? Because you were more enthusiastic? Why do you think you were outselling them?
That's a great question, Michael. I think for a couple reasons. I really believe that I'm the best at what I do, and nobody does what I do better than me. I've always believed that, even at a very young age. So having that confidence brings a level of energy to any conversation, to any
Right.
situation, to any circumstance, right? On top of that, I'm pretty strategic. Even back then, like I was taught how to script And so once I
Mhm.
learned specific words and ways and things to say things, you just get really good at, using keywords and power words and action words, and then asking the right questions. So I was trained well. I believe I'm the best, and I'm intentional and strategic about how I did things. So even at that young age, I was just, you know what I mean?
Intentional and strategic. That is not something very common to most 15-year-olds, and I think that's really cool. So you learn about this idea that by being intentional, strategic, confident, you get very very far. How do you then translate that for the rest of your career?
So that confidence piece just continued to grow because, as you know, Michael, once you continue to reassure yourself, or you continue to get all these little buy-ins and wins, reaffirming that, like, dang, okay, I really am the best, I'm really good. Your confidence begins to grow, and it continues to
Right.
grow. So from then, when I went to college, I was in college. I had sales internships in college, right? In marketing and in advertising, but I was still working in the summers and on breaks at this agency. So I was continuing to hone my skills because I was working for the best I was working for the best State Farm agent in Florida, and she was one of the tops in the nation. So I was
Wow.
getting the best training. Um, and so I was taking all of these little tidbits that I've learned about sales, leadership, into everything I do to answer your question. So when I got my internships as a college student, I was taking everything I learned from her into that. My first job out of college was with Ferguson Enterprises, and it was a sales job. And I wanted to go into advertising, but the outside when you graduate from college as an advertising major, you get like $16,000 a year. I mean, like, it's no money at all. And I was
Really?
like, I can't. Yeah, it was like, it's insane. It
Wow.
was, and this was a few years ago. I won't say how many. This is a few years back, right? Um, but you don't make a lot of money coming out as an advertising or journalism major. And I just didn't want to not be paid. So I was like, forget this. And I went directly into sales. And from there, again, I worked for the largest plumbing wholesaler in the world, and I got the best training. And I was good at it because I was intentional. I aligned myself with the right people, and I allowed myself to be trained. And so again, all of these tidbits I got from the State Farm agent, I took to that. And then all the things I learned as a salesperson at Ferguson Enterprises, I took to my next job. So it's this constant building and taking,
Right.
life really is a journey. And what we have to remember is that if you know where you want to go, you're
Hmm.
intentional about how you get there, and you realize that every single step is preparation for the end, or whatever that looks like. Every single step, if you do it right, right?
Right.
Um, And so I knew at the time, as a salesperson, the thing you wanna do you know this? Like, as a salesperson, like, the end all be all job as a salesperson is like medical device sales or biotech sales. That's
Really?
where you make the most money. Yeah,
Wow. I
yeah,
actually didn't know that.
yeah, yeah. So, like, for me, as a salesperson, I was in business to business sales, but I wanted to be medical device rep, biotech, because I knew at the time
Hmm.
that was where the money was. And so I was intentional about placing myself there. In order for me to get into biotech or med device, I had to be a pharmaceutical sales rep. In order to be a
Right.
pharmaceutical sales rep, I had to get business to business sales. So again, this intention, this focus, this strategic play. So you asked the
Right.
question, how did I take this into my journey, these are all the things I learned to take to be strategic. So I got business to business sales experience. I was great at it, won all kinds of awards, got a job in pharmaceutical sales. And then when I got to pharmaceutical sales, I realized that in medical device sales, they didn't necessarily want pharmaceutical sales reps because they thought they couldn't really sell, because all you're doing is dropping off drugs. And so then I had to prove that I can really sell. Like, I'm not just dropping off drugs. I'm a salesperson at heart. And I landed
Right.
myself in medical device sales,
Wow.
knowing that eventually I would be running my own business because that was always the goal, to start my own
So
business full
right,
time.
when did that goal begin? This idea of running your own business, and because one of the things that I'm picking up here is this idea of intentionality and strategic placement and training, understanding that
Yeah.
every pit stop along the way is a preparation for sort of this big milestone. So now I understand that
Yeah.
you've had this vision to run your own business all along, really, and those were just stepping stones for you.
That's exactly right. When I was a kid, my mom raised me and two sisters, and my mom was a business owner. I
Mm,
saw her work corporately, but I also remember when she completely cut ties working for someone else and she started her own business. Now, her business, I learned this. I learned everything from my mom in business and raising kids, all that. I get it from my mom. But she had, what we now call a side hustle.
yeah,
And so she was running. I remember watching her as a child run her own business while she worked two jobs for someone else. So she's building her empire slowly but steadily as she's continuing to be able to pay the bills for her children. And
incredible.
watching her do that, I knew at a very young age I was destined to become an entrepreneur and not just be an entrepreneur, solopreneur, but to build a business, to scale a business, to grow an empire. I knew that that was what I was supposed to do because I watched my mom do it. Um, my father, who wasn't in the picture much, but he owned his own business. My grandmother on my mom's side had her own business. My grandfather on my mom's side had his own business. My grandfather on my dad's side had, like,
Wow.
everybody, entrepreneurship is in the DNA.
Right.
And the interesting thing about DNA is that DNA is going to do what it's going to do. We don't have a lot of control over it,
Right.
right?
And it sounds to me
Yeah.
that one of the things that you don't have control much is over that passion, over this passion for autonomy, passion for resilience, that grit, seeing, failure after failure, but the attitude of persevering and being intentional, being strategic, and through these milestones, at the end, reaching the light, right? That sounds to me something
Yeah.
that's completely inspiring growing up.
Yeah, it is. And I think we have to remember that failure, I was interviewed yesterday and I was asked this question. Failure doesn't mean you failed. Failure
Right.
gives us an opportunity to get it right, right? And I can think of times specifically in business where I felt like I failed, right? I remember even in the magazine, I have a magazine in my media company, and there were times when I was the only salesperson. Like right now, even I'm the only salesperson because it's hard to find good salespeople. And you're carrying a bag as a CEO with 13 employees, and you're out there selling your company. And when the sales aren't hitting sometimes, when people aren't paying their bills, when COVID happens and you've got, 100, $200,000 in AR, and you have to pay employees and pay yourself, you kind of feel like a failure,
Right. Right.
right? But I call it God. I don't know what other people might call it, something different, but God has a way of reminding me that I was built for this. Because for every
I love
person
it.
that doesn't pay on time, somebody else sends a check out of nowhere. And I'm like, okay, I'm with you. Okay, I got it, right? For every
I
deal
love
that
that.
doesn't close, that I think should close, three more come out of nowhere,
Right.
right? Like that literally happens. Or I go into a deal, just happened a few weeks ago, and I'm thinking like, this is it. I'm closing this. This is done. This is a $100,000 contract. We're good. And they're like, nope. And I'm like, oh God, I suck. But then, like, literally, I walk out, and I'm driving and I get a call
Of course.
from someone who's like, hey, listen, I've been watching your magazine for 3 years. I called you 3 years ago. I couldn't afford it. I can now afford it. And I want a 2-page spread and a back cover for 36 months. How do I get started? What do I do? And I'm like, there you go
Right.
again.
Right. I think
Right.
that
So, like,
what you're
those are the
describing here.
stories.
Right. I think what you're describing here, from what I see it, is a lot of people can make the very easy mistake of attaching those two events and saying, if I failed in that, then that's an indication of my worth. And the fact that and then I that is like an indication of everything. But they really are not connected, right? Because for every 9 failures, you could get 1 success. And I think that what you're describing here is a perfect example where that single event cannot be extrapolated most often to describe
Right.
the overall structure. Uh, and those events
Right.
aren't connected necessarily. There could be a greater force, maybe, but they are not connected. What's connecting is that your business has a lot of value, and you as an entrepreneur have to understand that every single occurrence is independent of other occurrences, and you just have to persevere until you find them. Right?
Michael, let me tell you something. You're absolutely right. And I'm going to say this to you, and I'm going to say it to your viewing audience. You cannot live life by circumstances. Circumstances will fail you. They will erode your confidence. They will destroy everything you've built. Circumstances are not how you live. If you live your business professionally or personally by circumstance, you will likely fail. And I don't mean fail like in a good way, because you'll never be able to win. You'll never see the wins.
Right.
And I tell people often, when you have a win, no matter how small or how large, you have to live in that win, right?
Celebrate.
You have to celebrate it. Right? I just
Right.
had a team meeting yesterday, and we just signed a new agreement. We're taking our show, we're adding another network to our TV show, or adding our TV show to another network, and it's a huge win. That's a big deal, like big deal, and like literally deal on paper, right? And my team will, we talked about it, and then we're like moving on to the next, and we're going, and I was like, wait a minute, no, no, like we need to celebrate this. Like this is a big deal. They came after us. They wanted us. Because on the flip side, Michael, if we were to get canceled by some network, we'd be devastated. And you'd live in that,
Right.
right? You'd live in that. So we have to like really, really accept and live in the wins. I hear people say sometimes, "Well, I never get too low, I never get too high." And I get that. But I feel like you got to get high, cuz life will take you down if you let it. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
100%, 100%. And I think that those words are so important for me, for my friends that are not watching this. So thank you for sharing. We just have a few minutes left. 20 minutes go by way too quickly. But Michelle, tell me a little bit about your book. And
Yeah.
we didn't even talk about an entire subject that I wanted to, which is the idea of parenting and entrepreneurship together. Not something that I have any experience myself whatsoever, but you do, and
You don't have
you
any
wrote
kids?
about it as well. Not yet, not yet. Hopefully, my girlfriend is not watching this for the time being. Not yet. But Michelle, tell me a little bit about your book and about your experience and some of the key insights that you've gained from them.
Yeah, so the book really was built around teaching people how to parent intentionally. And from an entrepreneurship focus, this is important because when you have kids and you're running your own business, it opens up a lot of doors because it allows flexibility and malleability in schedule, but it also closes a lot of doors because you end up working a lot, right? You end up working often, and your kids see that. So
Right.
part of the reason I wrote the book is because I wanted people to see that, even as an entrepreneur, you can still be very present and very aware and very intentional about how you parent your kids. And there are two benefactors in this. It's your kids, but it's also you, right?
Right.
And so I talk a lot in the book about um, different situations I pose in the book where it works, right? So my first tenet is obey immediately and happily, and I got that from a headmistress at the school that we were touring some years back from one of my kids. I have four boys, and she was like, "Listen, we teach all of our kids to obey immediately and happily, because if they don't listen to us, we can't train them for the outside world. How do you train someone that won't listen to you,
Hmm.
right?"
Right.
And so even now, Michael, my kids, they mock me now sometimes, but I'll be like, "How do we obey?" And they're like, "Immediately and happily." I'm like, "Okay, well,
Right.
let's get to it." I'm missing the immediate and happy piece of this, right? But
Right.
my kids, they know this stuff. I can't train
Right.
you if you don't listen to me.
Right.
Um,
No, and I'm sure that it's a beautiful
I
line of both the obedience, but this what I'm hearing from you is that it's not just the obedience, but it's the openness. Because really, what does it mean happily? It means to be open minded while doing something, right? I served in the military for a few years here, and this concept of obedience immediately. That makes perfect sense, especially in dangerous circumstances where
right.
your life experience is much greater than theirs, and is first it's is comply, and now but being open-minded while doing so allows you to actually understand why does that make sense, and really understand it internally, so that you can exercise that independent thought process yourself later on, right?
I love what you just said. I'm actually going to take that and steal it, and I promise I'll give you your credit for it, Michael. But I'm
It's
gonna take
yours.
that because you're right. When people hear happily, they think that the kids are skipping off like, "Yay, I'm going to clean my room. I can't wait." And it's not that.
No.
It's the fact that you're not going to push back.
Right.
It's that you're not going to be resistant. It's the fact that you're going to be open-minded to the fact that you need to do what I tell you to do. And I love this. There's a situation that happened, and I talk about this in the book from a danger perspective. I love that you said that. Where we've been places sometimes, and I tell my kids, get in the car, right? And they're like, oh, they're just like, why do I need to get in the car? You know, you don't get in the car, we get car checked, we get, whatever, because you don't listen. So now I can't even do my job as a parent. I can't even
Right.
protect you because you're not listening to me. And that
Right.
happens. We see these examples all the time. I mean, I've had it. I mean, we've never been carjacked, but I've had examples where I've told my kid, get in the car, get in the car. And I'm like literally snatching them, get in the car. Like there's a weird guy walking
Right.
around here. I don't know what he's doing. Like, get in the
Right.
car, you know? But it's our job. And Michael, you'll learn
Right.
this when you have kids, but it's our job to send our children back in as good or better condition than we got them. That's our
100%.
job.
100%.
Yeah.
Michelle,
So
it's we can go on for hours. I feel like we just opened up a Pandora's box, and I think that what I'll have to do is I'm gonna have to first read the book, and I'm gonna have to invite you to another
yeah,
podcast, because I have about 20 more questions than what I've started with. So thank you for that.
whatever. You tell everybody that. You tell everyone that. You're just
No,
trying to
no, no,
make
no,
me
no.
feel good.
No, no, no. I genuinely very, very much enjoyed this. And I think that the insights you bring to the table with first, on the business side, the intentionality and strategic thinking and that mindset, that training mindset as a stepping stones until reaching that great objective. I think that's exactly how I am trying to live, my professional career. Your insights into this idea of parenting with entrepreneurship, and your own inspiration growing up, and that just the first lesson that you got to share with me. I just can't wait to read about those other lessons. But for now, Michelle, I have the final question for you, which is 3 words that you would use to describe yourself.
3 words. Um, Giving, strategic, slash
Mhm.
intentional. Can I make that the same word?
100%.
And and joyful.
I love it. Michelle, thank you very, very much. I'll see you in Atlanta, Georgia when I'm there. And until then, stay safe and stay healthy.
Listen, thank you so much for having me. And if anyone wants to follow me, you can. I'm at Michelle Taylor Willis on just about everything.
Wonderful. Thank you very, very much. Take care.